Hello and welcome to ScrollsTalks number 6, where today me and the Overlord will be discussing the things that have been going on in the world of Scrolls over the past week, starting the week of the 2nd February 2015. Hello and welcome to ScrollsTalks. And I just got a little bit of echo there. Anyway, welcome to the show, the Overlord.
Thank you. Always nice to be here.
And we have pretty short show for you guys today. There hasn't really been much happening this week, so we're gonna dive right into it. But first off, what have you been up to when it comes to Scrolls this week, Dora?
I've been diving back in some. Gonna see if I can become good and place myself high in the ESL and all that stuff. Also wanted to try help with the brawl, but they didn't want me, so okay. So I've been playing a lot of my order shenanigans. I've been testing a little bit like this. I do sometimes. I just take some of these considered weak scrolls and just test them if they really are still weak or if it's just the persona of them. Like everyone say they are weak, but no one is actually testing.
Like Stifled Advance?
Yeah, like I've been doing some Stifle Advance and Obelisk and stuff, and when it comes to Obelisk, I'm like, why am I not running just a Wingswarder? And when I did Stifle Advance is okay if you know you're gonna face growth, and there is a lot of growth because it deals well with all these one countdown creatures. So you buy time to get your late game order running. But
All right.
I switched it now for.
Have you done any testing for the upcoming balance stuff? Like I know a lot of players have been looking at the spiky changes and they're trying to come up with a spiky deck that would probably work in future meta. I mean, I've done that personally, but have you looked into that?
I look into that when the changes come. Like
okay, you don't do these advanced decks.
Nah, I can make that probably pretty fast. It's not really rocket science to do that. You put in the spiky guys and some horn of ages and roost them.
Just decall and spiky and add in everything.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what you kind of do. I suppose one has to ask, will you keep the armored guys? I would say yes. Yeah, the question is perhaps what you switch out for the spearmen as well. If you're running some kind of structure like I do, then I would switch out that. Maybe I will for like wings in my current deck for wings spearmen. I will probably switch out the ducal infantryman and put that in the spiky deck instead. And not gonna go through all of that.
Nah, we'll see how that comes on in the future. But with that, let's move on to the first topic, and that's basically what's been going on this week. So this Monday, there was the 17th weekly design contest, and the topic there with the theme were creatures with 4 countdown. And I don't actually think that at the moment in the game there are any creatures with 4 countdown. I know there are a bunch with 5 countdown, but not with 4. So maybe I'm wrong about that.
What is the countdown Skyform has? Isn't that 4?
Oh, that is actually 4. Yes, that is actually 4. Yeah, but that is a structure.
That I believe is the only one because what? Because I think it's 5 as well on Clock Library. It's the only one I'm also uncertain.
I'm gonna have to check that on up.
I'm not certain with Clock Library. I think it's 5, but it can be 4 there as well. It's been a while since I faced one.
No, Clock Library is actually 4 countdown.
Look how good I am.
Oh, I had no idea. I don't think I've played this thing in ages.
Well, to be fair, I wasn't certain about Clock Library either.
And moving on Wednesday, we discussed Thought Trap, which is an order scroll. And do you have any thoughts on it?
On Thought Trap? Wasn't it discussed? I believe, and I even commented on that.
I believe you did. I'm going to see if I can find those comments.
I essentially said, for what I can recall, that it is actually a good scroll that provides great value for what they do. It's just the issue is just that no one is really after what they do. It's a bit like the old healing, when healing did less stuff and has less synergy when there weren't all these units that damaged themselves, and when healing didn't remove poison and all that. Like, why do you want to heal? And
Yeah.
it's a bit of the same thing here with, as I said, if we get more stuff like blind rage and things that synergize with it, then it's gonna be a great card.
Yeah, I thought of like, oh wow, I could make an order deck, put Thought Trap in it, and then I could play Thought Trap on their Arbalestiers, turn them into 10 countdown. But then I realized I'm just going to use Tempo Theft and give those 10 countdown to one of my creatures instead. So
I will still argue that doing Infiltrate and Thought Trap combo is a really powerful combo, man. You essentially, because Infiltrate has the cantrip, you essentially pay like one scroll to put something at like 8 countdown. That unit is pretty much out of commission.
Yeah,
For the rest
I mean, especially versus a slower deck, like a slower archetype and resource like Decay, because if you double up their Harvester, it's probably never going to attack, because they have very little countdown reduction that they can make use of.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's something like you said, we're going to see more use of it hopefully in the future if they add more stuff like Blind Rage. There was no creative corner, by the way, this week. Instead, I made this massive post on the archetypes in TCGs, really in Scrolls. And you can find that by going to the Scrolls subreddit. You can find all of these things on Scrolls subreddit. And you can search for, I'm going to see here, archetype Squiddy. And then you limit the search to /r scrolls. And you don't find it. Let me see. No? Oh yeah, just search for archetypes and you will find it.
I'm certain people can't wait to read it.
I'm sure they can't. Other than that, the Dragon Brawl was back in action yesterday.
Yep.
And who won that?
Well,
yeah, no one won that.
We have our finalist, which is the Badger Guild, a real upset, and then the French, and then the French Spirit.
Yeah, they are both really great guilds with really great players.
Mm-hmm. For what I know, it is in the planning to change it a bit around so more participants can come in and so on.
Yes.
So
I discussed this with Billy yesterday, and he has, like you said, he's looking to other formats, like maybe 3-player teams, maybe don't link it to the guilds, like it's all up in the air. He just want to have a thought about it and see if there's a way he can improve the format, because I think it needs improvement. I think 5-man teams is too much. I think spreading out over 2 weeks even is too much. So I wouldn't mind seeing some changes.
We'll see what we can do. I think it might be a good approach to try with in order, like everything as he said has pros and cons to the ideas, but if we're gonna make it more open to more people, I think a good approach is to try have that a team needs to win a certain amount of times instead of a team needs to have a certain amount of players that needs to play other guys. So like you can play a 3-man team versus a 4-man team, for example.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Basically, the 3-man team gets to play more games.
Yeah, stuff like that. But that also has its own issues, but it can be resolved. We'll see where this goes.
Yeah. Other than that, though, it hasn't really been much going on. You announced the ESL 2015 Season 1 details on Reddit the other day.
Yes.
And why don't you actually go over that? How long is Season 1?
How long did it last now? I believe it was... There's 6 cups for that you gather points, and then the playoff after, and was it to the first week into March, maybe? I don't fully remember this. Wait, give me a moment.
Yeah, you go ahead and have a look.
I
And
need
while
yeah,
you
I need
do
to-
that, I'm gonna take a look at the other thing that happened. That was basically the weekly news post by Atmas. And not much has been going on actually this week because Mojang have been busy with prototyping practice. So this is something that they do over at the Mojang offices. They basically come up with ideas for games and just play around with them. But they have also taken a look at all the balance feedback, all the feedback to the proposed balance patched, and they want to avoid reworking scrolls as much as possible, and unless there is a clear need to do so, and that they'd rather introduce new scrolls with new properties in the next set. And they're also saying here that there are nearly 40 scroll adjustments in the proposal. And I'm going to need to check here if it actually was 40, because that might be a hint at them adding a couple of other changes. Let me just count the stuff here. 1, 2,
I think
3,
it
4,
might
5.
have been up to 40. I'm not too convinced. It felt more like it was like 31 or so, but because
Yeah, it's
felt,
probably 40. Just went
yeah.
over the list. Alright, then nothing new there.
Regarding
Oh yeah, go on.
how long it lasted to 22nd of March. 22nd of March is the playoff.
Excellent, and everyone can put that down in their calendars. Otherwise, Guido Fubini announced a Scrolls tournament. A pirate tournament, I think he called it.
Yes.
And I'm going to see what the prizes for that were. But I think it was quite a lot of money you could get.
Well, I do not remember, but yes, it was something along the lines of 140,000 at the moment or something like that.
Yeah, just a crazy amount of gold.
Yeah, real gold, of course.
Yes, the real gold that he ships over to you in a pirate's chest.
Indeed. There's not going to be some lame-ass truck here. It's going to be a pirate ship coming there. And if you don't live by the coast, it will be like a zeppelin.
Yes.
That will fly to you.
Manned by air pirates. But the date for that is the 21st of February, so still some time away. And that was really all that happened this week. But we have some things coming up. More ESL next Sunday. And this is all my predictions now. But I think that they're going to reveal the design contest results next week.
Well, hopefully so. We'll see what.
Like, I'm 90% certain at this point. And we might even see the February balance patch on the test server.
Yeah, that would be good.
But other than that, we are actually going to discuss something that has been brought up a couple of times over the years, and that is hard limits. And by hard limits, we mean putting, for example, a hard hand limit. So if you have, for example, 10 scrolls in your hand, you want to draw more scrolls, or if you draw scrolls, they are automatically sent to your discard pile. And the reason a lot of players want to see these kind of mechanical limits to the game, because they feel that a lot of the bad components in scrolls are a result of there not being enough limits in the game. There are no deck cycles. I mean, there are no punishments for cycling your deck. You can't run out of scrolls. You can draw an infinite amount of scrolls. And you can put as many enchantments as possible on units. But we're going to start off with a hand limit. What are your thoughts on hand limits, the Overlord?
Well, the current one we have, I'm not sure what the purpose is for. Well, I read the purpose they typed before, but it doesn't make sense. So what they typed before was this were not necessarily to deal with everyone were like everyone has this idea that this hand limit was a response to deal with like the massive draw kind of decks, but for what I read from them, that's not really the purpose. It was more for the tablets. They don't want there to be too many cards in your hand when you're playing on tablet because it becomes all messy and doesn't really
Yeah,
work.
that makes sense.
So that was more the primary reason. The issue is just that you can still have a bunch of cards in your hand.
Yeah.
Deal with it. So our current, not a fan. Should we have? Yes, I think. I don't see an issue really to have a 10 card hand limit. I'm not sure why it has to be 8. Why 8 is the magic number, or if it is 7, I don't remember.
It is 7 currently.
Yeah, 7 is magic. I think 10 is maybe more appropriate, and it won't deal really with draw heavy decks, because if they reach the limit, they will just play out the card and keep on drawing. But what it do, and I think that's good, is it do some limitation in how much you can just pile up. And I would like, people have several ideas here. I think a majority seems to be in favor of having some kind of hand limit. The question is a bit more when it comes to community, I feel, how should it be executed? How should it be designed? Some want it just to be this, next card you draw is discarded immediately. I would prefer, honestly, to have some kind of next card you draw, you draw a card and then you choose what you like to discard from your hand instead. So it's sort of not necessarily just negative, but more like you can keep on refining your hand by discarding what you don't want to keep in your hand and so on. That's kind of my idea, but maybe that won't necessarily work, because maybe that what could become problematic is let's say your opponent has a Oblivion Seeker and I kill it. Well, it has to do this on my turn and choose what to like. So for that simplicity, it might be easier to just do that. Opponent discards what he draws immediately. That might be. But if he discards what he draws, I feel it's important that you showcase what it is he discards.
Yes, definitely.
So they know what they are missing.
I think Hearthstone does this very well. If you overdraw, it pops up in front of you in the screen and it burns up. It's a very obvious implication of what's happening when you overdraw. And that is your cards are not usable. They go away. So I think that, as you said, you need to keep it simple, because there's a lot of cases where you draw scrolls during your opponent's turn. And currently in Scrolls, there is no way to interact with the game, with your hand or anything during your opponent's turn. Everything that's happening is his stuff. You don't have any buttons to click, you don't have anything to do. And I think they should stick to that, keep it simple, and use some sort of automatic discard system. Some people have said that it's the oldest scroll in your hand is discarded when you draw a new one. So your scroll to the very left in your hand is removed. So it's like it's pushing it away. I think that could work, because then you know what is being removed from your hand when you're drawing something. And then you could introduce dragging around scrolls to reorder them in your hand. So then you're implementing a control mechanism. So if you can, for example, move the least important scroll to the back of your hand, then you know that if you overdraw accidentally, that one will be removed instead. And I think that would probably be a neat solution.
Yeah, that could also work. It just needs however, some UI work.
Definitely.
To deal with that. But I'm in favor of that. I just think it definitely needs a more limit on how much cards you can have in your hand at any given time. This is not necessarily for balance purposes, as some we might come later on with other kind of hard limits, where it comes to how you can balance the game with the hard limits. This is a little bit more when it comes to just visual and such. Having the UI be good and visual and simple and clean. so to speak.
And that is really comes down to the tablet version. You can't have as many cards shown on your screen because you have a smaller screen estate. And that leads us to the other subject of hard limitations, and that would be putting, a limit on how many enchantments you could put on a unit on the field. Because currently in the game, enchantments are shown on the side of the scroll. And on a computer, even at times, it can be really hard to see what those enchantment tabs are when you have a ton of effects and enchantments on a single unit. So on a tablet, I imagine it's even harder.
Yeah. I find it's really funny when it goes below my screen.
Yeah.
Like I can't read it anymore. This is more has to do with balance. Like Scrolls has so little limitations that you can do all kind of. You can get so much value from cards over and over again, because you are not really limiting them in how much you can use them. So, and before I answer, I will say yes, I think there should be a enchantment cap. It do not have to be. I'm not sure what the perfect amount for it is. It's somewhere between 5 to 10. Is my cap. Like, you have to keep in mind there's quite a lot that can happen on your guy. And when we're talking enchantment, are we actually talking, like, this is a question I would ask, should there be like a cap for example, you can only have 4 enchantments but also 4 effects, so you can have 8 total, but it has to be 4 of them, or should they be included into the same?
I think keeping it simple is good.
Yeah, simple is good. It's just that I'm not entirely sure I like to, in some cases, categorize effects in the same area as enchantments, because the thing is, enchantment is either everlasting or semi-everlasting, while effects only is for that turn, and I don't really see the issue if you're gonna. Well, actually, effects would be. I wonder what happens when I haven't really checked it. If you, for example,
what are you? Yeah, go on.
If you, for example, do Reloras, and you have Reloras buffing up, if he buffs up several times, do you get several effects, or is it just one?
It's several effects.
Yeah,
you get one for each trigger.
Yeah, so this is also one of these where we talk about balance. So, for example, if you would have that you can only give certain amount of effects and enchantments in total, like let's say we would go with you can only have 4 enchantments and 4 effects, then that would mean he can only, that would still be enough, but still,
yeah, it would.
He can only buff them up 4 times.
Although you'd have to think of stuff like focus. That is an effect.
Yeah, that is what I also mean with how it should not. I just don't think the cap shouldn't. I just not keen on necessarily the idea that enchantments and effects overlaps each other, but it could be fine. However, the big point is that I think it's kind of necessary to have a enchantment and effects, or both, whatever, cap in the game, because as I said, we have this issue in Scrolls where, because we don't limit how much we can use the scrolls, how much value we can keep on getting through them. Yeah, like, yes, sure, that's kind of cool in a way. But as soon as we get a cool unit, like Reloras,
Yeah.
or like Earthborn Mystic and so on, like, as soon as we get something cool, they very easily spiral out of control. And it's a bit of a shame that we can't have cool stuff because the mechanics are not limiting them how much value they can provide. They can just keep on providing value.
Yeah.
So you either have to like give everything a double-edged sword, like would have to do with Reloras, that every time he buff everyone, he damage himself and stuff like that, or you have to actually introduce some proper limits into the game. And I think stuff like this could be good. I talked a shit ton. Let's hear what you think about.
Well, I think you are spot on. The problem is, like you said, there are no limitations. There's no drawbacks to a lot of things. In many games, card draw is good to an extent. If you draw too many cards, you're entering your deck, and then you're entering the fatigue stage in Hearthstone where you die because you can't draw any more cards. Or in Magic the Gathering, your library hits 0, you can't draw a card, you lose. And because of that, you want some card draw in those decks, but you don't want too much card draw. Whereas in Scrolls, there is no downside to card draws. A lot of the good decks, like for example this Order deck that Kradsash plays around with, it's built around card draw. Heritage onto a Sin-marked Zealot. Suicide it into something.
Mm-hmm.
Just play as many Imperial resources as you can. Play Infiltrate. Just keep drawing as much as you can, because there is no limitation to it. There's no downside to drawing this stuff. And first of all, implementing a hand limit, that would give some balance back. You'd have a reason not to fill your deck with card draw. And that would help some decks, some resources, which don't have that much card draw, like energy. Now, suddenly, it's not too bad to only have really Burn and Clock Library as card draw, because you're not going to overextend your hand. You're not going to lose cards from drawing over the limit. And some decks, some resources will get interesting scenarios with, for example, the Oblivion Seeker, where it is downside a drawback to play that Oblivion Seeker, because your opponent will trigger it, and you don't know when he will trigger it. And that would make for more interesting mind games, I think, and more strategy involved.
Yeah.
So, that is the kind of strong argument for hand limits. And in a way, putting a limit on effects as well as enchantments does the same thing. Because something like the Reloras, you don't have to nerf him. Some people say that he needs to be nerfed. I don't think so, really. But if he was too strong and he needed a nerf, it has to be done in a really awkward way. You'd have to reduce his stat line, and he'd become a really poor guy without his effects being used. Or you'd have to put in this really wonky, his resonance effect can only be used X amount per turn. And I don't like that either. But if you put in an effect limit, he is naturally limited by game mechanics. So yes, you can use him 4 times in a turn, but then that unit has its cap reached. You can't play a focus on it now. You can't play something else on it now you can't play Horn of Ages. And that makes it more balanced, it makes it more interesting. But more importantly, it makes it easier to read all those effects and all those enchantment tabs on the side of each scroll. And I think that's needed for tablet versions.
Indeed.
Because right now, the game looks janky as hell. It just looked so bugged, and the UI, it just doesn't feel finished. Scrolls doesn't feel finished. It feels like a beta game.
Well, it's definitely not finished, but I will not say it feels like a beta game. It's more like you definitely see when you start to play, what I think many newcomers don't see is that many newcomers comes and they see like a pretty finished game. Like they feel the tutorials and stuff are pretty bad, and they are pretty bad. And the first 2 are great, but then it comes. But that's not the topic. However, when you start to get more into the game and you start to read what all the cards say they do, and you start to compare with other cards, and you start to test them out and so on, then you start to see where the unpolishedness comes in. But otherwise, I would say
Yeah, but I'm thinking, for example, if they spectate a game and they see someone play a Mystic and then draw all the enchantments in the deck and put it on her. Like, I've shown that deck off to a lot of new casters and streamers, and their initial reaction is that's kind of broken. Like, it just feels broken.
Well, to be fair, many say, like, as soon as you face something, this also goes for veterans, and it's why we always get a bunch of broken, in doing quotation marks, broken cards and decks in every set, every new expansion and so on, is that as soon as you face something and you don't know how to deal with it, you call it broken. But actually it often just needs some time to figure out how you properly deal with it. However, if no one is able to really figure out how you properly deal with it, then yes, it's probably broken. So I would
I mean, I'm not saying that those decks are broken, but they look broken at a glance. And I think that's off-putting to a lot of players.
Yeah, well, I don't have too much to comment on that. That I feel, holy shit, your microphone went attack. What happened?
Sorry about that.
Anyway, I don't have too much to comment on that because I think community in all games just always comment on stuff they feel is broken, and like this goes for in shooter games, in MOBA games, in bloody strategy games and so on. Like every time something new comes up and they see that they're like, this is broken, and find it out and think, well, that's on you. I don't really judge that fast.
No. And I was going to mention something. One way, if you were to limit a cap, is that you could stack together effects. So this is something I realized you could do with effects to separate them from enchantments. You know now that when you get poisoned twice, it shows that as 2 poisoned effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, why not just put them together and call it Poison X2? So it's poison twice. So it's all kind of merged together whenever you get the same effect twice. So if you're poisoned 3 times, it's just a single stack that says poison 3. And that means you take 3 poison damage at the beginning of each turn.
You are...
Because yes, you are then.
To put it like this, you are... I'm not disagreeing with you. However, it's one of these, I think, squiddy ideas where I'm not sure if you have thought of all the interactions that comes with it. But I would agree. I'm not sure the X is needed, but what you could do, like it says poison, and then if you do another poison, it's a 2 in front of the poison. So you know it's 2 poison. However, I would question, and no matter how they do it, both options are questionable. Like, should it be this way, yes or no? And community probably gonna eternally debate about it. Like, if you have something like 2 poison, it says 2 poison on it, but it's one effect saying this 2 poison. Should you get 2? Should both disappear from a wing sorceress ability, or should just one disappear?
Yeah, the thing is, I think the wing sorceress ability is kind of weird. It should just work as purification, so she just removes everything.
That's kind of strong.
It is strong, but I mean, when is her ability kind of... Because when you have, for example, brain lice, yes, she can remove the poison from the brain lice, but she can't remove the brain lice itself. She just becomes so weird against these negative debuffs, which come with effects.
She's honestly... I think she works fine and really good. I don't think that is kind of weird at all. I don't mind that. Not gonna go too much into her. Like
I've seen a lot of players complain about that because they think, oh wow, I can't even deal with these brain lices or these infectious blights with my wing sorceress. Like for example, Crad Stash, things like that.
Yeah, but Crad Stash, like not to talk down on Crash Dash, but Crash Dash find a lot of things weird, which I find is not weird at all. So I'm not surprised if he disagrees with my point of view, and he's not wrong. I mean, saying that I find things logical and he finds other things logical, and there's no truth in it. It's just opinion. And for me, poison and the ability that you get a card draw from the poison is not necessarily the same thing. And I totally find that they become two separate beings. I even like I didn't suggest it for the brain lice, but it was a suggestion I came, but they actually did it before me. I don't think they did it because of me, but they had already done it. I just didn't notice that they did it for Infectious Blight. With Infectious Blight having its separate ability, but this was not really because if it made sense or not. That didn't I bother about. It was more like I felt the poison. It would help the poison decks some if the ability remains on, and I think. Well, I just think it makes sense. Okay, why it makes sense? I don't know.
That's fine.
Nothing in the bloody games makes the goddamn sense. Okay. So.
But I mean, to go back to what you asked me, with something like that, if you're not going to buff the Winged Sorceress, then it would make sense for her to remove the entire poison stack. And that would be a buff to her. So if you have poison stacking up, and it's the last one there, so it's like a 4 poison, and she just outright removes all 4 poisons, I would be fine with it, because Heal would remove that anyway. Purification would remove that and much more anyway. Unbind would remove it all and more anyway. So ultimately, I think it would be fine. Sure, community might be divided on that issue either way, but you get such simplicity when you stack together poison, when you stack together curse, and it becomes just easier to display on the side of each scroll.
It does becomes one of these where things like what is that lady called now again? Well, that mystic lady which is warded herself.
Vilda.
Wilda. Wilda getting attacked from enchantments. Like, should she get if the enchantments stack on each other, should she get 1 or 2 attack from that? It's like the same question there.
Yeah.
And I don't mind either way. I can see the logical approach in both ways. Like either in your suggestion that yes, it should count as 1 stack. It's a 1 thing. It's just more potent than before. But I can also see others others arguments like no, it's several stacks and therefore it counts as several. It's just it's clumped together for visibility, so to speak.
Yeah, but however you go about it, just clumping it together is probably a good way to make it look less cluttery and make it easier for tablet players to see what's going on. Because it's not that actually weird to have a scroll on the board that has a lot of different effects on it that it becomes hard to read on a small 10-inch screen, which actually happening.
Also, as a future dream, but this is not really a priority per se. But well, okay. So many will say like it is a priority, and okay, it's kind of a priority, but 1 step at a time here. And this is like the 3rd step. It's not even the 2nd step. But still, if we can have a limit on enchantments and effects, that means there will be like there can only be so many enchantments and effects on the board, and that opens up much more that we can do them more visible, that they do things, so it doesn't become a big clusterfuck with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, it's a really good idea, because if you have, say you'd go full hog, you can only have 5 total enchantments and effects on a scroll. So it could be 3 enchantments, 2 effects. whatever. They count as they basically group together. Then you only need to worry about 5 kind of visual effects on the board at the same time. So it could be a poison aura from the poison. It could be little roots from the binding root. It could be like, I don't know, spiky stuff if you give it a spiky thing from, I don't know, ruse. But either way, it would be interesting because you limit the effects and enchantments. Like you said, it doesn't become a clusterfuck to display it visually.
And honestly, when it comes to display, man, everyone always comes like, well, it will become a bit rainbowy, like a rainbow of stuff on the field and so on. Like my answer to that is, it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't have to be like poison that it's constantly there. You can honestly just have, like, let's say we have binding root. Take that specifically. Have it that every turn some roots come up around the guy, and then they disappear. They don't have to remain there. Like they can just do it at the start of the turn. And sure, if a guy have a bunch of stuff at the start of the turn, then yes, you're not gonna really see the roots, but you're gonna know that this guy has a bunch of stuff for him.
I think that's a really good way to actually even do something like poison. At the beginning of each turn, all the effects kind of pop up in an order. So you first have the roots, if it's binding rooted. You then have like a little poison aura, if it's poisoned. You then have the curse symbol pop up again above its head, if it's cursed. And, I mean, they have the effect for curse in the game already.
Yeah.
It is a little symbol. They have that pop up at the beginning of every turn for a curse unit.
Well, it doesn't pop up every turn, but...
I mean, it should.
Yeah, sure. But in that case, if it's gonna do like that, it needs to do in quite a pace, because we are not trying. We don't want the game to stall out more than it already do with all this stuff. So it needs to do it in that case just fast. I would say just do it all instantaneous, honestly. And if you are unsure what all this stuff this guy had, then click and read, for God's sake. But you will know that he has something. But that's the point of it.
And I think like doing this stuff, putting in limitations on hand, putting in limitations on effects, giving the effects, now that they are limited, more visual indications, it would improve the game for new players. It would help kind of make it less confusing at a glance. They'd see more easily what is happening. If you're on a tablet, it'd be a lot clearer. And generally, I think it would help the game a lot.
And I agree. Well, you wanted to talk about abilities, so I should just go to that in that case.
Yes, so this is also something that probably popped up because of the Mystic deck. And maybe the Brother of the Wolf thing.
I would say that it has been there beforehand. Maybe not in a really hot topic. The first time it really became a hot topic was with the Infinite Wolf from the Brother of the Wolf.
Yeah.
That kind of became a hot topic for time, and then with the Mystic it became even hotter. But it's been there.
Yeah, and the thing is, it used to be you could only use an ability once per turn, unless it specified it in the case of Automata Forge and Solemn Giant. So I don't remember when they changed it, so that any ability could be used any number of times, but I think it was after Waypoint was introduced.
Yes, it was fairly late here in the development process. They made it into Infinity, somewhere after Waypoint, before release.
And it makes sense, because it doesn't say on the text you can only use this ability once. So then obviously you should be able to use the ability as many times as you want. So I agree with that. I can see some people's hesitation about allowing for infinite abilities. For example, in the case of the Infinite Brother of the Wolf, where yes, you can fill up your board, and it's not actually even that hard to accomplish. You only need a Brother of the Wolf who is about to count down to 0. And then you just play the Appurtenance, and Fleetness, is it? Yeah. And the Orchid. So it's not even an expensive combo. But...
yeah, I would say, when it comes to this, indeed, the way they are worded, it makes sense. so it should remain as it is. But you could do some limitations specifically if this becomes, because this is indeed one of these things where it can become an issue. And what I would say, that would demand some coding and stuff, but I don't know how difficult that is. Maybe it's easy, maybe it's hard as balls. Like sometimes it feels like, yeah, sure, we can do that. We feel like, isn't this very difficult? No, not at all. It's not difficult. And then it's like something like Potter.
Father?
Yeah, something like Potter comes out like, isn't this quite easy to fix? No, it's really difficult.
They said like it's in the basic of the game, like they'd have to recode the entire game from scratch just to fix the Father bug.
It's like we have a tree of code. Like everything is based from this tree. And so if you're gonna do something in this branch here, you have to go back to where this branch start, and so on, and fix that. Or rather, no, that's not. What am I saying? I'm saying like if you're gonna fix something here, if you fix something here, it also affects the other branches from it. And Potter is like in the bottom of the tree.
And it makes sense because Potter, I think, is one of the first scrolls in the game. It's one of the base scrolls.
I don't think it works like that. I think I'm talking shit. But
no, it makes sense, perfect sense. But go on.
Anyway, so what I would suggest, if I had like almighty power in coding, introduce stacks. Introduce, like for example, Blood of the Wolf. Every turn, he get another stack for summoning, which means that every time he goes to his 0 in countdown, he could theoretically summon 2 wolves if you can get it out of him.
All right.
So on. So like every turn they get one more stack, and this would also deal like with Reloras. He only have like 2 stacks for it every turn. And so on, or like all the time. Like he can only accumulate stacks for it. So that would be like my suggestion if we need a limit for it. Have a limit that they accumulate stacks every turn. So,
that is interesting. And that actually is something that I kind of created a system like that for this.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. Because basically, for my fan-made resource type, Chaos, I said each unit can gain marks. So they are stacked up, and then you can spend those marks in different ways through the abilities. And what you're describing is exactly that. The Brother of the Wolf would basically be gain 1 mark when it counts down to 0, and then you can use its ability to spend 1 mark and summon a wolf. That is more or less what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I was just reading a thing.
Right. So basically, you could. So you gains 1 stack, like gets 1 mark, and then it doesn't summon a wolf. Okay, it's there on him. Next time it counts down to 0, it gets another mark. It's still on him. And 3rd time, he gets 3 marks. He can now summon 3 wolves at once if he wants to. And yeah, I think it's a very kind of elegant solution because it allows you to stack up value in those units and then unleash that ability's power that you've saved up over several turns all at once. But then, of course, you run into the risk that he destroys that Brother of the Wolf before you manage to summon all those raggeds. So if they're going to limit it, I would agree. That would be a really neat way to do it.
Yeah. But otherwise, I would say that I'm not sure if it really needs to...
I don't think it needs to be changed.
Because, like, yeah, you can use their abilities a bunch of times, but they cannot do it really naturally. The only one that can sort of do it naturally is Reloras. But even him demands... People have this idea that Order draws naturally 1 scroll, and then they draw 2 spell scrolls. That's not how it works. That's not how it is. But Reloras is a different topic. But point is, they cannot really do it naturally. So it comes a bit more how easy is it to trigger them? That's more the question.
I mean, you mentioned it, like something like Reloras, for example. It is relatively easy because you draw something, right? You play a spell that gives you another scroll, then you get even more stuff, and that comes down to the card draw. If you make the card draw less good by implementing a hand limit, you're kind of affecting the Reloras as well, because you won't as easily be able to put all those spells in your hand through card draw.
Well, I'm not sure how much that card limit would.
It would be a minor
limit
thing, but I
this.
think it would slightly affect it.
Something I know we are running a bit out of time here,
It's alright, go ahead.
so I'm just gonna put this in. This is not a limit I want, but it's a limit I feel people kind of need to be aware. Whoever is watching this, probably not too many, but still. And that is the resources. Scrolls is also it's very unique that in theory you can have unlimited resources in Scrolls.
Yeah.
Like even Magic the Gathering has like you can only have so many resources as you have in the deck. And with and with Hearthstone, it's of course you can have max have 9 resources. I don't think there should be a resource cap. I don't think like you can max have 15 resources or something like that. That is a bad idea for several reasons. One of the primary reasons I would say it's a bad idea because that makes it even more dragged out when it goes to the late game because you have a hard time finish the game out because you need to do more powerful combos, but you are limited in this.
Definitely.
You cannot do these powerful combos, so it's not a good idea. You want when it starts to get late game, you want it to try to finish it, and this is a good way for it. But what this means is that you cannot really design, and this is why Quake was for a long time sort of is, but not really, is still an issue scroll with that. You cannot really do scrolls that is designed around the idea that you can only this takes up so much of your turn that it's balanced because that can be avoided, and you can do scrolls that avoids it. It's one of the primary issues sort of with Imperial Resources.
Yeah.
It's sort of meant to take your whole turn, but it don't necessarily if you get late game enough and it just spiral out of control. It's why, and I really sort of think about it when we went through the whole design contest, and I saw like this scroll that were like World Wake with making everything getting 1 health.
Yeah.
And I mean, in something like Hearthstone, sure, if you make it cost 9, which is the max resource you can have in Hearthstone.
10, but yeah.
Okay, 10. Dude, I'm not a Hearthstone player.
I know, just want to make sure that's correctly put out there.
It's good to say that. If you make it like cost 10 or something, that sounds bad. But the point is, then you cannot really do much. It's your whole turn doing this. This is what you do this turn. However, in Scrolls, you can easily do like make it even cost 10, make World Wake cost 10, and you can probably still get enough resource to do like a Frostgate after and just wipe everything. So that is why these kind of cards that is designed around the idea that they cost a lot of resource. They don't necessarily always work because we don't have resource cap. We don't have resource limit in the game. So, but I don't think something like I don't think we should have. I like how you say go on, even though I just speak way too much. But I was about to finish here. That I don't think we should have a resource cap, but it's something one needs to kind of be aware of when it comes to the balance.
Well, I mean, for example, what we do have in Scrolls instead of a resource cap is basically a cap for what you can do in a turn, and that is Surge. If you put Surge on certain critical scrolls, that means that if you play that thing, you can't follow up with something afterwards. So if it was put on World Wake, yes, you can play Frostgale afterwards, but if you could do something similar, like, for example, when you play this scroll, all your resources are spent, so like a Mega Surge, then you could ensure that there are scrolls in the game that take up your entire turn. And maybe that could even be something that you do for Imperial Resources. It has Mega Surge, which means that if you play it, you can't do anything afterwards that turn. So I think there are ways to do it without putting a direct cap on your resources.
Yeah, and I agree. Surge is a elegant solution to some of these scrolls. However, not necessarily at all. Like Surge really works well when it comes to Southern Eruption. It's a well-balanced scroll for sudden eruption. However, saying like, well, Imperial resources are meant to take your whole turn, so let's put search on it. That would not work. And the reason is because you can, let's say I have 14 order. I can use my units and so on, and then do the Imperial.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't really affect me. I just want to Imperial the first thing I do Imperial the last thing I do. And for something like, one could rework search, but for the world wake, like make world wake have search, so takes all your resources when you use it. Well, search only, at least right now, and you would have to redo search, how search works. Search only search the resource it's used. Like it doesn't search, for example.
It doesn't
like,
search
let's say,
the wild.
It doesn't search the other wild or other resources. So you could still use other scrolls if you have other resources for it, unless you redo how search works and so on. So I mean, like, it works for some. Like sudden eruption is a perfect for search, but for others it will not really work.
I guess taxing then is our only hope.
Be careful with taxing, man.
Because, I mean, you say it like that.
I mean,
if you, for example, put it on Imperial resources.
Yeah, for the same reasons like search, taxing is not always the solution. Taxing would be a horrible idea on Sudden Eruption.
It would be awful on Sudden Eruption, but for example, on the Imperial resources, if you put taxing on it, that means that it doesn't become a ramp into high enough resource so that you can then play Imperial and do stuff. Because the Imperial resource would increase in cost. So when you have 14 order... Yeah, it's something you suggested when we discussed this.
Yeah, that is what I mailed and suggested that to the developers. Apparently they felt like, no, we're gonna do these 3 other options for it. And I'm like, all right, fine. But I think it should have taxing. I think ramp scrolls are good candidates for taxing, so they don't spiral out of control as much. And other, like, there's only really 2 categories, unless you do a specific card designed with taxing, depending how much it costs, they do more stuff and stuff like that. Unless you do that, I only find it really working for 2 types of cards, and that in the game, kinda, at the moment, it's only Imperial Resources and Quake. I think it's good on Quake, because Quake is one of these cards where it's only meant to be used so many times in the game, I feel. You're not supposed to really be able to spam this thing. You're not really supposed to reach the level where you can double Quake. Like, I don't feel double Quake was a healthy thing for the game. It's good that you cannot really double Quake. You can do 2 Quakes in a row, but a double Quake is not really that nice. So, and it's the same thing, you should not be able to do double Imperial.
You can. It's so easy to do it, actually. You only need 14 order.
Yeah. But, I feel those 2 are good candidates for taxing, but something like Damning Curse, I don't understand why Damning Curse.
No, it doesn't make sense, because Damning Curse was designed with a drawback built into it already. But you can, you can turn it into a positive thing, but you just tacked on another drawback.
I think it falls into this mindset of, like, they want Damning Curse to only be used so many times in a game, and I'm like, meh.
I strongly disagree with that. I mean, it's another kind of limit, and that is a unit limit. If you're able to just put out a unit over and over again, but all those removal spells get weaker and weaker over time if you put taxing on them, then your units, your creatures, they don't have any limits to them. You can just play them as many times as you want. And if you're playing against someone with less creatures than you in their deck, you're going to win. So I would like to see more potent removal in the game, but that is a discussion for a whole other time.
Regarding, yes, I'm going to do I think we are about to end this here, but Donkey asked if Imperial really needs a nerf, and to that I will say I'm not on the wine train how Imperial is totally imbalanced, but I do say that I still feel it's a little bit above the curve. And for me, I have felt that you can either do the remove healing on like units or something like that, but I prefer the solution of like for me the issue with Imperial is how it can spiral a bit out of control with the permanent ramp it gives. So I want to see it either to have taxing, so even if it gives ramp, it becomes more costly to use it. Have it be taxing 2 or taxing 1 that needs testing. Or I would like the resources to be current. I'm not sure the magic number there, if it's like free current water for next turn. Same turn it will be useless. Don't have that. But have it for next turn, like Fea, like how Fea works.
Yeah, that would be an interesting idea, actually.
So like I want that either to be current resources amount, not sure, or taxing amount, not entirely sure. Because I feel like the issue with Imperial, what makes it a little bit above the curve, is how it gives that ramping, which can be really a really pain in the ass to deal with later on. But
Yeah.
no, I don't feel it's like way over the top. That I don't.
And the thing is, in a lot of things in Scrolls, something doesn't really need to be imbalanced for there to be a discussion regarding whether or not it should be changed. Like, we don't really need hard limits just yet in the game. Like, I don't think it's that crucial of an issue where you have to implement a hard cap now on enchantments or effects. But as we see more Scrolls, the developers are limited by the lack of limitations. So I think more limitations would be beneficial to the game.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it's not that we are in need of limitations to make imbalanced things balance, but it's more that we keep on getting a bit of not too bombastic and cool cards because of how it needs to be limited. It becomes a bit of quantity over the quality. With the quantity be how much you can use the card, about the quality how much the card could do on its own. Like the card cannot do too much cool stuff if you can keep on repeatedly use it all the time and so on. So I mostly want more limitations so we can get more cooler cards, because you can design better around limitations than
Okay.
without.
Yeah, with that, I think we have reached the end of the show.
Yeah.
So if you have any last minute plugs, Delvalord, go ahead and say them.
Not necessarily. I probably should have some kind of plug. I need to make some kind of plug list. One day you're gonna ask me, and I'm gonna pull out like a massive list and just go through.
Then I'm gonna cut you off after a minute. Like, I'm warning you now. You only have 60 seconds on you.
But no, I don't have really today. I guess give Blinky's YouTube channel some love. People are like, I prefer going to NRP. I like NRP. I suggest you go to NRP and so on. Give Blinky some love, man. He's doing a hard work trying to make his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And he were once the big guy on the block. You don't want to listen.
Alright. Personally, I guess, yeah, definitely check out more people's YouTube channels. Because it seems like nowadays the community is more gathering around these streams. But there is a lot of stuff going on YouTube, like Smogan and Sisp's deck building thing, which I think is on the Badger Guild YouTube channel. There is Blinkist stuff, there is NRP stuff. I'm putting up all of these little podcasts on my YouTube channel, which is Squiddy Biscuit. I think there's a link to that in my profile page. If not, I really should add one. And, well, there is one here at the top of my screen. You can see my YouTube username.
I think many don't know about YouTube. You need to at some point put like one post on Reddit. Like I found your by accident. It was like YouTuber like, have you checked this channel? I'm like, Squiddy has a channel.
Yeah, like mostly, I mean, the stuff that goes onto YouTube is just my Twitch stuff. All of these podcasts. I just accidentally unmuted myself there on the stream. But yeah, with that, guys, thank you for watching, and have a happy scrolling week. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.